Lights on, lights off, lights on, lights off, lights on, lights. Uh-oh. Hello everyone, Professor Scalar here, and welcome to the alternate R6BX level guide. As always, we're starting off with your loadout, and today I recommend you bring along with you a bio tracker, a mine deployer, and then any 2 sentries of your choice. The reason why I recommend the bio tracker is because there will be a fair amount of shadow type enemies in this level, even if you are only going for a main objective run, so you're going to want to have a bio tracker with you to not only make it easier for you and your teammates to shoot at these shadows and deal with them, but to also make it that our sentries are actually capable of doing so. When it comes to the mine deployer, I'm recommending this as there will be a few alarm doors in this level where we could get good utilization out of it, and there are also going to be a few blood doors we have to make our way through, and of course, mines are by far the easiest way to deal with blood doors. As for the 2 sentries, these are to also help us out during some of the alarms in this level, as mines alone, especially without C-foam, will not be enough to cut it, and also because there will be moments where we just really won't have any doors we can utilize with mines whatsoever, and therefore we want sentries to give us that extra bit of firepower. As for the ones you want to take with you, if you want to play it safe, just take 2 burst sentries. There's really never a moment in this game where burst sentries do not work out well, but if you want to bring maybe a burst sentry and a shotgun sentry, or burst and a sniper, or any other combination, by all means go on ahead. Your results will vary a little bit, but honestly you should be able to get away with any sentry combination in this level as long as you're utilizing them properly. Dropping down into level, you'll see that your main objective is to start the emergency power by using 2 specific terminals, which will always be located inside zone 183. And starting off, you and your teammates will be inside of zone 180. In here, not a whole lot to take note of, just some enemies to deal with and resources to collect, and at the back end of it, you'll find a security door to zone 181, which is going to have a class 5 cluster alarm tied to it. And as you can see with this map overlay, even though there is a room to the north of you, the only possible small location for enemies is all the way down south. And there's just a single door right here that you can utilize. So go on ahead, shut that door, place a mine on it, and because of how this room is positioned, and a lot of the times the scans like to go really close to that door, go on ahead and place your sentries outside facing towards the direction enemies will be coming from. That way the sentries will deal with them as they approach that door. Sure, it is a little bit wasteful because some of the enemies that'll get cut off initially would have probably just died to the mine anyway, so the sentries are slightly wasteful there, but because it's a class 5 cluster alarm and it'll take you a little while to finish it, it is more than worth it to do it this way. Once everything is set up though, activate the alarm, work on the scans, and once you are finished, pack up your sentries and then head into zone 181 itself. In there, again, not really anything too special I need to take note of, just more enemies to deal with, more resources to collect, and once you go far enough into it, you'll find the security door to zone 182, which is just going to have a full team scan tied to it. The thing is though, once you open up the security door, very shortly afterwards, a temporary blackout is going to occur that is also going to be spawning in a wave of shadow strikers. Now, I believe this wave of enemies can only ever possibly spawn from behind you, so what I like to do is, as soon as I open up the security door to 182, I will rush in, deal with pretty much all the enemies in the first room, if there are a few of them in there, which more often than not there will be, and then I'll either have 1 or 2 people behind with thermal weapons just deal with the shadows as they approach from behind, or I will go to the door that is immediately to the left of you going into the zone, and just go in there, shut the door behind me, place a single mine on it, and then while I'm cleaning out the enemies in that room, the shadows will eventually catch up, break down the door, and the mine will deal with most, if not every single one of them. Overall, not that difficult to deal with this, there aren't that many shadows that spawn in, and shortly after you have taken care of this, the lights will come back on, and you just continue progressing like you normally would. Keep going throughout the zone, deal with the rest of the enemies, grabbing more resources, and at the far northern end of it, you'll find the security door to zone 183. This door is going to have a full team scan tied to it, and inside of zone 183, this is where both of those terminals are that you need for your main objective. However, they are both password locked, and you'll have to go to a few different locations in order to actually be able to unlock them. But beforehand, go on ahead, feel free to go throughout this zone, grab those resources or leave some behind. This is a central hub room, so you do not need to take all these with you immediately. And once you're good to go, you'll head to the western side of it where you'll find a security door to zone 184. This door though is going to have a class 4 cluster alarm tied to it, And as you can see with this map overlay, there are 2 different locations enemies could spawn from and 2 different doors we could utilize. So go on ahead, shut both of the doors, place a mine on each of them, and then just have your sentries somewhere near the southern security door facing in that general direction. And once you're done with it, pack up your sentries and then head into Zone 184 itself. Now, when it comes to Zone 184, this is all just going to be one big room. In here, a few regular strikers and shooters, as well as 2 scouts patrolling about, even more resources to collect, and there will be a terminal in here, which you're going to need to use in order to unlock the southwestern security door to Zone 185. Now, Zone 185 itself is where multiple terminals will be located at, which will have the keys you need to unlock the terminal back out in Zone 183. The thing is though, that security door is locked until you put the command into the terminal in 184, and once you do, you are given an 80-second timer until a blackout will occur, as well as an error alarm. This error alarm will be spawning in 2 shadow giants roughly every 60 seconds, and the only way to disable it is to go back into Zone 183, get onto the terminal in the middle of the room, and put the emergency command into it. So once we are good to go, we put the command into the terminal 184, rush over to 185's door, do the full team scan tied to it, and then we have to go throughout there. We basically have a minute and 20 seconds to just clear out as much of the zone as we can before we have to worry about the blackout. The thing is though, Zone 185 is filled with shadow strikers, and there are 4 different terminals in this zone. One of them in the first room towards the back end of it, the second one being in the second room pretty early on, and then the third and fourth terminal being in the third room. So what I like to do is rush that door, do the full team scan. I will typically pull the first room if there's a fair amount of shadows, just quickly blast my way through them, and then one person gets on the first terminal while the other 3 people head into the next area, go to the second terminal, and then if you're lucky, you'll be able to figure out what the password is with just these 2 terminals alone. If not, just work together as a team, making your way through the shadows. There's a lot of ammunition in this level, so feel free to pull the rooms if you need to, and just make your way to the far back room, get in there, get onto one of the 2 terminals, and with 3 of the 4 letters, you should be good. If you're playing well, by this point the blackout should occur and a wave of shadow giants will spawn in, or a wave of 2 of them I should say, but you and your teammates could just backtrack with the letters you have in hand, get into Zone 183, make your way through those shadow giants, and once you get back to that terminal, put the password into it, and then just do the special command, and once you do, the lights will come back on and that error alarm will be deactivated. At this point, you can then go back into Zone 184 and 185 and grab any resources you might have left behind if you need them, but if you're good to continue onwards, then you can head to the eastern side of the zone to the security door to Zone 186. This door is now going to be unlocked and we'll just simply have a full team scan tied to it, but very shortly after you open the security door, another blackout is going to occur and another error alarm will be initiated. This error alarm spawning in 3 shadow strikers roughly every 30 seconds. And just like before, we have to use one of the terminals inside Zone 183 in order to deactivate it. So once you go into Zone 186, what I like to do is I immediately rush to the southern end of the zone while I find a blood door. Once I get there, I place a single mine on that door, open it up. Mine will deal with a fair amount of the enemies, but there's a lot of shadows that spawn in from this blood door, as well as a few upcoming ones, so you'll have a whole lot more shooting to do afterwards. Once I clear out all the enemies from this blood door, I then immediately rush over to the eastern side of the zone where I find another blood door, and once I get there, I do the same thing again. Once I've dealt with all of the enemies from that second blood door, I do not go to the northern end to deal with the third blood door. Rather, what I do is I have one person go to the eastern zone, one person to the southern zone, and then the other 2 people sort of go to the northeastern corner of the current zone you're in, 186, and then I'll get on that terminal there. Because the terminal in 186 will have one of the 4 letters, and then each of these 3 side blood door zones will all have terminals with 1 letter each. And again, you should only need 3 out of 4 to figure out what the word is. So once you have those 3, you can then quickly run back out into Zone 183, go to the southeastern corner into that special room, unlock the terminal with a password, put the command into it, and that will make the lights come back on and deactivate the error alarm. Then at this point, I can then just go throughout Zone 186, 187, 188, or 189, depending on which one of the ones you actually open up, and grab resources. There's not that many resources in these blood door zones, by the way, so don't feel like you have to open up all 3 of them. But once you've gone around and collected all the resources from these zones, you can then go back into Zone 183 and go to the northern end where you'll find a security door to Zone 190. This door will now be unlocked, and this security door is going to have a Class 1 sustain alarm tied to it. And as you can see with this map overlay, there are a few different possible spawn locations for enemies. The thing is though, it doesn't matter where they spawn from, there aren't any doors you can utilize except for potentially down south Those two doors were involved with a previous alarm, so there's a pretty good chance both of them will be broken down. But if one of them is still intact, then by all means go on ahead, make sure the door is shut and place a mine on it. And then when it comes to you, your teammates, and the sentries, the scan is always going to go into the middle of the room like you can see the background footage. So just bring the sentries with you and have one facing towards the west, one facing towards the east, and you can call it good. Now, if you brought something like auto sentries or shotgun sentries, maybe position them a little bit away from you since they don't have all that much range, so you don't want them to be shooting at enemies from too far away. But if you got things like burst sentries or sniper sentries, they could just go right there next to you, right next to the scan. But once you completely get that scan done with, you just have to deal with any enemies still left alive, pack up your sentries, and then grab any nearby resources if there are any left over. Then just go back to the security door to zone 190, do the checkpoint scan tied to it, and you can head into there. And when it comes to zone 190, there's not really a whole lot to it. There will be no enemies in here whatsoever, but there will be a fair amount of resources to collect, as well as your very first bulkhead key and the bulkhead door control and doors to the main and secondary objectives. Which, if you're going for a main objective only run, you are done with the level at this point. All you need to do is just plug that key into the door control, do the scan for the main bulkhead door, and then just head up to the northern end of the zone, do the full team scan tied to the security door to 191, and then just head right on inside. No enemies spawn in whatsoever as far as I'm aware, and the extraction scan is a pretty quick one. If you and your team plan on doing a secondary run though, there's still a little bit left for you to do. So you're going to grab the resources in here, as you're definitely going to want as many of these as you can get, and then you're going to go to the door control, do the scan for the secondary objective, and that will unlock the western bulkhead door to zone 249. No scan or anything tied to it, so once you and your teammates are good to go, open up that door, head inside, and get started on your secondary objective. So heading into zone 249, immediately you're going to notice a timer appear at the top of your screen, and once that timer hits 0, you're going to be thrown into a Warden Survival Protocol, which is what your secondary objective is. Now for the Warden Survival Protocol, you're going to have to survive a total of 10 minutes before the security door is unlocked that will have your second bulkhead key, which you're going to need in order to get out of this level. So what I highly recommend you do as soon as you get into zone 249 is go to the northwest corner of this area where you'll find a small door, go into there, shut the door behind you, place a mine on it. If you happen to come across C-foam grenades, go on ahead and C-foam the door. If not, then place your sentries outside the door facing towards it, because inside of that northwestern small room, you'll be able to find a security door to zone 250. This door is going to have a class 3 cluster alarm tied to it, and as you can see at the map overlay, there are a few different locations enemies could possibly spawn from. As for how you want to set up for it, there are these two doors over here you could utilize. I will typically mine that northern door since I'm right past it already, but the southern door, I just won't even bother touching it. As for the one that leads into your room, of course, have that shut, mined, and C-foamed. And again, if you don't have C-foam, place your sentries on the outside of it, since this is a fairly small room and you don't really want the sentries in the room with you. Either way though, once you activate the alarm, get to work on the scans. Once you finish it, deal with any enemies who are still left over, and at this point, the Warden Survival Protocol will definitely have initiated, so you're going to have to deal with some enemies every so often. Now, these enemies can consist of a few different things. You might get waves of regular strikers or shooters, you might get a few giant strikers, but once you get to the 7-minute and 10-second mark, a blackout is going to occur that is never going to go away, and from that point on, you will never get any regular strikers or shooters or giants again. You're only ever going to be getting waves of shadow strikers and even so often shadow giants. How you want to deal with this really is just make sure you're sticking together as a team, and if you want to, go on ahead and utilize the mine deployer in nearby doors to conserve a bit of your ammunition. There will be some resources to collect in these zones, but at this point, speed is more important than actually being thorough and checking every single nook and cranny. Once you get into zone 250, what you are looking for specifically is a power cell. You need that power cell to progress further on, and typically that power cell is located in one of the far western rooms of this zone, and it's a fairly big zone. Thankfully though, if you keep heading west, eventually one of those rooms will have a terminal in it. I believe there's actually 3 different terminals in this zone, so it's kind of hard to actually miss one of them. So I'll just keep pushing my way through to the western end, blasting my way through enemies, dealing with the enemies that are spawning in from the protocol, grabbing a resources nearby if I happen to come across them, and once I get to the terminals, I will ping the power cell to figure out exactly which one of the rooms it is in, and then I will just continue heading west until I get to that room. Once I get there, I then grab that power cell, and then I just slowly but surely make my way back out of the zone into zone 249. If you are really fast about grabbing that power cell, you could take a little bit of extra time to actually ping resources in this zone as well, but again, you don't want to be taking too much time in here. Once you make your way back out of zone 249 though, go into that northern room, and in there you'll be able to find the generator as well as the security door to zone 251. This door is just simply going to have a full team scan tied to it once you plug the power cell in, and inside zone 251 there's going to be a few more enemies to deal with, a few resources to collect, and at the back end of it a security door to zone 252. Now this security door is only going to have a full team scan tied to it. However, it does not unlock until the timer hits 0. So if you get here and the timer is not that close to 0 yet, then just go on ahead, grab any nearby resources, and then just get ready to hold out, kind of like you can see my team doing in the background footage. If you have a fair amount of ammunition and some ammunition in those sentries, then it's really not all that difficult to hold out. I would highly recommend though, utilize those sentries to try to conserve some of your ammunition, because even after that timer hits 0, waves of shadows are still going to be spawning in. But just hold out here until the timer hits 0. Once it does, do the full team scan tied to that security door. And then when it comes to zone 252, it just consists of 2 fairly small rooms. I would say just have 2 people rush in and open up the boxes and lockers and look for that bulkhead key, while the other 2 people stay outside to just ensure that the shadow wave that spawns in next doesn't spawn too terribly close to you. But once you have the bulkhead key, you can then just pack up your things and blast your way through any of the enemies that get in your way on the way back out into zone 190. Once you get out into zone 190, just go over to the bulkhead door control, put the key in, do the scan for your main objective, then quickly run up to the northern end to the security door zone 191, do the full team scan tied to it, and assuming you're able to make it here in one piece, you are home free. Just rush into that zone, extraction scan will be right there, won't take all that long to finish, and once you get the scan to 100%, you are done and you have completed alternate R6BX. And that's all there is to it. Alternate R6BX is a level that I have a lot of fun playing through multiple times over. It's not too lengthy of a mission. Scrambling for those terminals and playing a game or 2 of Wordle in the dark while dealing with all those shadows coming after you is a nice rush. And the secondary adds a bit of extra spiciness to the level without causing it to drag on for very long. And if things do happen to get a little out of hand towards the end, that mad dash to extraction with no ammunition at all brings you a true feeling of wanting to GTFO. As always though, thank you for watching this video all the way to the very end. I do hope that I was able to provide you with some assistance in beating this level. If you have any tips or tricks to this level that you want to share, any questions for me, or you just have something in general that you would like to say, please do let me know down in the comments. I always enjoy reading them. Hit that like button if you enjoyed the video, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more from me, and if you want to join my lovely community, there's a link to my Discord down in the description, as well as some other links you might be interested in. Among those links being one to the official GTFO merch store, which, as always, I highly recommend you check out if you're a fellow GTFO enthusiast and you're looking to pick up some sweet merch. Until next time, if my hunch is correct, then this will be the last video I get out before the release of Rundown 8, although this is being recorded a few weeks in advance, so I could be wrong about that. But hopefully, no matter what it is, I'll see all you wonderful people in the next video.